All right, call this meeting to order, January 9th, 2024, 5:39 PM. Alder Galvin, Alder Burnett, Alder Johnson, Alder Hutchinson are all present. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Galvin, a second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item D, approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Galvin, second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. E, regular business. 1, consideration with possible action to award Bell and Health the contract for firefighter NFPA 1582 medical physicals for an estimated $180,000 for 3 years. I believe that is $60,000 a year, right, for 3 years, total 180. So, any discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Burnett. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 2, consideration with possible action to approve the purchase of a Superliner Type 1 ambulance for a contracted price of $394,940. Alder Hutchinson?
Yeah, I had a question regarding the process by which the price, cost, and proposal was selected. And just would like to hear from the fire department on how this was done.
Sure. This, and we can talk about the finance rules too, but this vehicle will be purchased through competitive purchasing agreement. It's part of a consortium, so it's through HTAC Buy, which is a consortium of purchasing that we're eligible to participate in. There's a fee involved in that, but they would put out basic specifications for, in this case, an ambulance. Prospective bidders would then bid on that process, and they would award a competitive bid. And then we can actually partner with them and actually purchase off of that. And so it's an ambulance that meets our specifications. We also have an apparatus committee that looks at all the vehicles that we purchase and then determines what specifications we need, and then that's how we procure this. This is a similar process that we use for purchasing our recent engines and ladder trucks. In addition, using another cooperative purchasing agreement to purchase a command vehicle that we recently purchased too.
Okay, thank you, Chief. It's just there was one number, and I just wanted
Yep,
to share it.
that's why
That
it is.
totally
there's a
answers the
competitive
question for me.
process to it.
Thank you.
Okay, good question.
Motion approved.
Second?
A motion by Galvin, a second by Hutchinson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 3, consideration with possible action to award assessment services to Forward Appraisal for a total 3-year cost of $252,000. I believe Assessor Schwant was on the line. Russ, did you want to speak to this item?
It's just a continuation of the agreement that we have with the current service provider. The contract ran out recently as of the first of the year, so we're just going forward. Put it out for an RFP with Tom's help, and they were the only qualified, well, the only bidder. And looking at the reviews from our evaluators, they scored over 95 out of 100 points on what they felt was the value for the dollar. So I'm looking forward to working with them going forward.
Okay.
Motion approved.
Second?
We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Hutchinson. Are there any questions or further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 4, consideration with possible action on the 2024 agricultural lease agreements for city-owned parcels, number 21-24, number 21-11-1, number 21-403, number 21-404, number 21-189-1, number 22-SC513, and number 22-SC510.
Can we take them all together?
That is listed together as one item. So I believe that is the case by default.
I don't have any questions. I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I did have one question for staff. I noticed that, let me see, there was a request to increase by $10 an acre. I noticed that one was listed at $90 an acre.
Yeah, that one is prorated in the fact that there's a little less farmable acreage there. And so we
Okay.
took into consideration that there's some
Higher
environmentally sensitive
mobilization,
areas
probably.
that we did a reduction. And so instead of figuring out the minus acreage, I used the complete parcel acreage, and then we did a prorated amount.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if that was a Scrivener's error, if there was some reason to that, so.
There was reason for that one.
Okay, so you can't ever accuse me of not reading the details.
Thank you for that.
Okay, that was the only question that I had.
Yeah, we just upped it a little bit to be in line with some of the ag leases that we found from the county,
Okay,
regional area in our county, what ag leases we're going for.
yep. Okay, any further questions?
Motion approved.
Okay, got a motion by Galvin, second by Brunette. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Number 5, consideration with possible action regarding the review of the City of Green Bay's 1033 program inventory.
Sure.
Any questions?
Just, Chief, those, all the weapons, do we still have those? Are we getting rid of them? I mean, some of them are,
We have them, and this is part of the project that we funded in the capital improvement plan to replace all our patrol rifles. And so we anticipate getting rid of those, except I believe these 7.62 millimeter items 5 through 9 are honor guard.
those are the color guard ones?
that, yeah, we use
14s?
for parades and that kind of thing.
Sure. All right, other than that, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Receive and place on file, probably?
Sure.
Yeah.
Receive and place on file.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Galvin, second by Brunette. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 6, consideration with possible action on the resolution to refund real estate taxes for parcel number 21-8022 at 3492 Dolomite Drive for 2023 and 2022 assessment years for a total of $859.26.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Galvin, second by Hutchinson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 7, consideration of possible action on the resolution to refund real estate taxes for parcel number 6-3042-1 at 1220 Hurlbut Street for 2023 and 2022 assessment years for a total of $2,748.87.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Hutchinson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 8, consideration of possible action regarding communication from Alder Randy Scannell that City of Green Bay include in its tax bill the amount that the Green Bay School Board levies for private school vouchers and independent charter schools. Now, why don't we start with staff on this one?
I can start with, what I did is, this is an item that, the Brown County actually prints our tax bills. So if there is any additions that we're going to want to do with the tax bill, we'll have to work with the county. I reached out to Chuck Malik, who is filling in for the county treasurer at this point, and he gave me some options, so let me know kind of what the options are. But again, this would be for the tax bills that are going to get mailed out in December 2024. So we have time, to consider if we want to add some additional information into the city tax bill.
Okay.
Do you have could it cost us to put in a line that blah, blah, blah?
Well, the couple options that were stated from Brown County is one, on a tax bill, if you look up at the upper corner, top corner, the city of Green Bay, or every municipality can put their own little note on there, so we have a little bit of information on how to pay your tax bill. There could be a little bit of information that could be added right up there, and please check this, if you want to know more about the voucher payment or the Green Bay schools, we could add a note in there, check this website.
Sure.
That's an option. Currently, as you know, they are pre-folded tax bills at this point. An insert would not fit. We have several examples of other municipalities in the state that has put inserts into their tax bills, but that is not the current type of tax bill we have. The county said that, there is an option of us going back and doing a different type of tax bill where the city wanted to manage the printing, the folding, the inserting, and mailing them. That is an option for the city. I would assume that's going to cost us a little more than what we currently. The county does all the work, and the only thing the county charges us for is the mailing for postage. So if we wanted to create a different type of tax bill so that we could allow an insert, it's going to cost us more than what we currently are paying.
We can't just print under, where you see, you've got schools, you got this, and NBTC is listed and all that. There isn't somewhere to print in school voucher And then the amount?
That's option 3, and that's customizing and programming of the system to try to add an additional line. That is probably going to be the most expensive, because then you're going to have to get a programmer to try to change the tax, how the bill prints.
All right. And I guess we can wait to see if we decide to go forward with this or not, then to see what it would cost us.
Correct. So, yeah, and that is the information I've collected at this point.
The protection policy, didn't they take this up last night too?
They took no action
I was-
because they knew we were going to talk about it here.
Okay, I just saw it was on the
Thank you.
agenda.
I knew what
didn't know
they
happened.
said they were going to talk about it here, and you're right, I didn't check to see what happened last night.
Okay, I know there's some folks here that want to speak.
Yep. Motion to open the
Wait,
floor.
yeah,
Interested?
Alder Burnett first.
Just a clarification to your point, Alder Galvin, that the public school, the private school systems that benefit from vouchers, they're not a tax levying entity. It's
They are
just
not.
their funds are being used through a voucher program transferred from the school district to those schools directly. So it's not like NWTC, Green Bay Schools, Brown County, Green Bay, those are all taxing entities.
Correct.
This voucher system wouldn't, so we'd be kind of, this requires a deeper discussion. I'm trying to get to the motive of why this is being presented to us, but
I think they may explain it, but bottom line, from what I understand, is that because of the voucher system, the school districts are receiving, the public school district is receiving less and less money because that money is being reallocated to the privates, to other schools. And so I think they want to understand, I think the information was going to share like how much money is being redirected to the private schools and through because of the voucher system.
do you know, I don't want to get down a rabbit hole here, but do you know what the cost per voucher is? Last I knew, when I was on a school board for a private school, it was like $7,000 to $8,000.
I don't know what the current amount is.
It's like over 10,000 last, it was reported in the paper, it was over 10,000 for high school students, upwards of 8,000 or 9,000 for grade school, and then it goes a little bit from there.
And so we did get information from the school. They had sent a letter to the mayor, and they had sent us a letter, a copy of their resolution. So them asking us to try to help them put some information in out with the 2024 tax bill.
So the school district is asking us to do
The
this?
school district actually sent a letter to the city of Green Bay and to the mayor.
Signed by Dr. Tiller or the school board?
We could always refer
Okay.
this back to staff, and then we could include those documents into the next packet or bring it to the council.
Because it seems like this is part of the discussion. Do you know the cost per student the Green Bay Public Schools accrue or absorb to educate children?
Right, I do not know
Okay,
the
that's
answer to
fine.
any of the school district information.
Okay, so we had a motion to open the
Yep,
floor.
Open the floor.
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Anybody who wants to speak, come on up, state your name and your address for the record, please.
I'm Denise Gomer Hutchison, and my address is 3184 Hermans Road, New Franken, Wisconsin.
And I'm Lynn Gerlach, and my address is 483 St. Bernard Drive, Green Bay.
I guess I'll start, and Jesse, I think I can answer quite a few of your questions. But good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight at this committee hearing. As I said, I'm Denise Gomer Hutchison. I live in the greater Green Bay area. Our children have attended the Green Bay area public schools, and I've chaired the last 4 Green Bay area school district Yes Committee referendum for the referendum efforts. In my volunteer role with the referendums, I talked to a number of residents throughout the district, and they wanted to know if they voted yes for this referendum, what was going to be the impact on their tax bill. And as I said, I've done the last 4, so it's been over a number of years. Thankfully, because of the fiscal stewardship of the Green Bay area public schools, the tax impact has been very limited, and oftentimes has had no impact at all from the school district costs, but taxpayers aren't seeing that because of the lack of transparency and accuracy in the tax bill. We are all very aware of the importance and the value of taxes in our community. They help our roads, our public schools, our libraries, our parks, and a multitude of other services provided to our community. Transparency and accuracy on how tax dollars are spent is imperative if we are to be trusted by taxpayers. Sorry to say, the tax bill in its present form does not convey a transparent or an accurate representation when it comes to public schools. The Green Bay Area School Board is requesting the assistance of our municipal partner in sharing how, and Jesse, here's your number, $11,508,893 in tax dollars per year are diverted to our private schools. Over $11 million in the 23-24 school year is what will pass through the Green Bay Area Public School District to private schools. And
Excuse me, 11 million just for Green Bay.
just for Green Bay.
So that 11 million going to the Green Bay Public Schools, and instead it's going to private or voucher schools?
Right,
Okay.
and independent charters.
It shows that it's coming
Coming
to
to the,
us.
yeah, it shows on your tax bill that it's coming to the Green Bay Area Public Schools.
Okay.
And that's where, when you're out talking at doors to people about the referendums and things like that, they can't make a well-informed decision because they're looking at their tax bill thinking Green Bay Area Public Schools is already getting this much money, but it's really not. And so then the Green Bay Area Public Schools has to levy. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the Green Bay Area Public Schools, which is the third largest school district in the state of Wisconsin, behind Milwaukee and Madison, is one of the lower spending school districts in the state. Right now, they're at around $10,500 per child. They levied up, with the permission of the state of Wisconsin legislature, to $11,000. But Gibraltar Area School District spends $21,000 per child. So that's a huge disparity, and we're the third largest school district with probably some of the most diverse needs in a school district. So to have $11 million, really $11.5 million go out without any transparency or accuracy and without any requirement of how they use those funds. So everyone has a choice of where to send your children to school, but the tax bill should be transparent and accurate when explaining where those tax dollars go. And that's really a fiduciary responsibility. Education is a public good, and monies intended for the betterment of our students, our families, our community and society should be spent to achieve those goals. We are simply asking you to help taxpayers in this community see how our tax dollars are being spent to support two school systems. Other communities around the state are already placing explanations in their tax bills to show how the taxes that are presently lumped into one category of public school costs should be divided out. Bill, you asked about, there is lines available in it's called a press and seal tax bill. Racine does an insert in their press and seal tax bill, and it doesn't cost them any more than they're presently paying. Now, I don't know how Brown County will do it, or what, they will absorb or not absorb, but those are a couple of options, and it's my understanding from the Department of Revenue is that they may have programmers that can help with some of that and some things in that area. A strong, thriving public school system is integral in creating the #1 city to live in the United States, especially when the Green Bay Area School District is one of the top employers in the city, and it's a draw for people moving to the Green Bay area. They want to live near high-quality public schools. Having those high-quality public schools requires adequate revenue to keep them up to date, well-maintained and staffed by high-quality education professionals. It is hard to make that happen with a lack of funding. And if taxpayers can't make well-informed decisions because their tax bills aren't transparent or accurate, that funding won't be available to the district. Taxpayers think right now that they are funding public schools, but a huge portion of that funding is being diverted out to private schools. Taxpayers should know that information so they can make well-informed decisions when referendums happen and when they talk to their legislators. Exciting things are happening in our community. I don't know if you have a chance to go on the Green Bay Area Public Schools website, or if you get the notifications when kids are receiving really outstanding scholarships to Ivy League schools to Tier 1 schools to the UW system and all across, and also the amazing STEM stuff that's happening in our school district. And that's happening because we have great people working in these school districts. The public market plan for downtown is one example of an investment in our public good, one which will bring new energy, jobs, and hopeful families to our downtown area, where they need to have great public schools. City East will be a game changer for families on the east side. Thank you very much. Let's afford citizens the privilege of knowing how their tax dollars are being spent to achieve our shared imperative of being the #1 city in the U.S. to live. Other communities are letting their taxpayers know. Milwaukee, Racine, South Milwaukee, Greendale, and a number of other communities are working on their efforts right now. Please be a leader in Northeast Wisconsin and move forward to tax bill transparency and accuracy for the community of Green Bay. Thanks for your time, and I'd like to turn this over to Lynn Gerlach, one of the Green Bay Area School Board members.
Thank you. I don't have a speech. Denise just called me this afternoon and told me that she had bronchitis and would I please come along in case she couldn't finish speaking. So you all know me, and you know probably that I've been serving on the Green Bay School Board for about 9 months now. I went there knowing nothing about the Green Bay Public Schools. My children did not attend Green Bay Public Schools except 1 year each. As you know, they went to school all over the country as Army brats. And I didn't know what to expect. And I'm just going to tell you that I have fallen in love with the Green Bay Public Schools. I had no idea of the challenges that our staff faces and how they embrace the needs of every single school, every single child. There's no kid turned away. I have been in schools where I see wheelchairs and walkers lined up outside the classroom, and I go inside. I've been in schools where there were, I'm trying to think now, there were 5 kids in one class, there were 3 kids in one class, and there were 5 adults, because these were kids with special needs, and they were getting their needs met. Just last night at our school board meeting, our superintendent, Claude Tiller, reminded us that every year we have to state whether we have openings for any special ed kids to come into our district. And every year we have to say, sorry, we don't. We don't have one single opening. You can't choice in with a special ed kid from De Pere or from Ashwaubenon because we can't afford to pay another teacher to teach any more kids, although we have plenty of room in our schools for more kids. So this resolution went to the mayor, and he shared it with you, and I'm going to leave a copy with you before I go, but I don't want them to be reading it when I'm talking, because I was a speech teacher and I don't allow that. So, it was, I believe it was shared with you several weeks ago, and it was signed by our president, Laura McCoy, and I'm quite sure it was signed by the superintendent also. It's very short, and basically what we're saying is it's about transparency. We just want people to know where their tax dollars go. I remember when Diana, when I was known as the most brilliant alder who understood finance better than any of you. Look at her laugh. And because I didn't. And she showed me that picture of that dollar, and she showed me that the biggest chunk of it, about 44%, goes to the public schools. The tiniest little chunk goes to NWTC, and you know where the rest goes, county and city. And we would just like people to know that that great big chunk doesn't all stay in the Green Bay Public Schools. We want them to know, and I'll tell you, give you some more facts here. The Wisconsin legislature has increased the per pupil payment for vouchers that we have to pay out. They increased it by 22.3% for grades K-12, K-8, 41.1% for grades 9-12, and 18.1% for special education, and 27% for independent charter schools for this current school year. Those were the raises in what we had to pay. The Wisconsin legislature has also voted to allow us to tell the taxpayers, and they have voted that we may include this information on our property tax bills. When I paid my property taxes recently, I got a nice little flyer. I don't know, I'm sure that's a local thing that was made right here in Green Bay, not through the county, I'm guessing. And it showed that little picture again where all the money goes, and I thought it would be so easy for you to, I bet it's printed right here in your print shop.
It is.
It would be so easy for you to just add that information. I want people to know. I think there are taxpayers who would like to know that some of the schools that this money is going to are religious schools. They don't know that. Some are charter schools that have political affiliations. They don't know that. And I think it's fair to let them know. So we're just asking for transparency, and as Diana said, you've got the whole year to figure this out. And so I'm going to give you a copy of this if I may, and then I'll be quiet.
Just to let you know, Jesse, what that equates to, and Bill, is that with the $11,000 increase per child in the Green Bay area public schools, that goes across the board, the $11,000. But for vouchers, the high schools that are getting vouchers from the Green Bay public schools, they get $12,950. So $11,000, so right there is a higher outlay, more than what we're getting paid, for public schools. So an $11,000 voucher for all the high school kids in the city of Green Bay, but it's over 12,000, and I have to make sure I'm correct on it, and I'll get you the correct number, but I have in my head 12,950, but I also have drugs to get rid of the bronchitis, so I'm a little hazy on that number, and so I'll make sure I get you the exact correct amount. So it's a higher outlay to private schools than it is to public schools.
And that's true also of special education.
Yep,
The
much higher.
reimbursement, we get reimbursed, public school, we get reimbursed for 33% of our special education costs. A private school,
Is
a
getting
voucher school gets, what,
95%.
95%, yes, reimbursed. It just doesn't make sense, and we'd like people to know the truth.
Thank you for being here. Question though, because you said
Yeah.
$11 million gets sent to voucher schools that participate in the voucher program. But one question I had though, to Diana, was the cost per student to educate someone in the Green Bay area public school system. Do you have that amount?
That's that 11, I can't give you the cost, but I'm sure I can get it. I know I can get it from Josh or from Amy at the district. But what you need to know is that the most that the school district can spend, or that they can levy to the taxpayer is $11,000. So like anything over that. But we have kids that are $200,000, $300,000 to educate because of special needs.
But you get state aid.
Only up to 33%. We're only reimbursed at 33%.
Right, but what I'm getting at is that you get state aid to balance the budget, right? And then you get Green Bay area property tax levy. So
But we didn't get any increase from the state of Wisconsin this year. It's a 0% increase. And yet the private schools, and you'll see it in that resolution, got a 22 to a 40% increase.
Right. No, what I'm getting at though is, this is why it's important to know the dollar per student that it costs the Green Bay School District. So whether the money comes from the state or the money comes from the local tax base. What I'm looking at is the dollar amount it costs the Green Bay area public school system to educate a student. Whereas if there's a student that can benefit from a voucher and go to a school that the parent chooses is best for the student to go to, per the wishes of the family and the student, that if that school gets a voucher of $10,000, $8,000, whatever, $8,000 to $12,000, let's just say, if it costs the Green Bay area public school more money to educate that child per capita, wouldn't it serve an advantage to send that kid to a private school if that private school can do it more economically?
But they can't, and I can't say that they can't because we don't know if they can or they can't.
Well,
'Cause
I know they can't. I'll tell you.
We don't know how they're spending their money though.
Well, I'll tell you though, and this is the problem, the overall philosophical issue I have, is it just seems to me, now I'm not saying putting words in your mouth or prescribing motives to you, but it seems like there's this push to kind of villainize, again, strong word, but there are some people out there through the voucher programs and their criticism of the voucher programs that are villainizing private schools or religious-based schools or schools, as you said, political. I'm not sure what political schools would qualify for a voucher. But I was a member of a private school for 4 years on a board member, and I'll tell you that that school was run very well with a board of governance that was very solid, that the church and donors supported that private school, that I would hate for something like this to be a wedge issue, whether you have the motive or not. I'm not, again, accusing you of any motive, but there are people out there with motives that are trying to use this as a way to discredit or really eliminate the voucher support of private schools. And I think as a parent that there are many members of the community that prefer to send their kids to a private school, but simply can't afford to. And as a taxpayer, when I pay my property tax bill, I care about educating children.
Right.
So if the child is being educated, whether it be at the Green Bay Public School or a Lutheran or Catholic or non-denominational Christian or Muslim or Islam school, it doesn't matter to me. The issue is that I want children to be educated. And if there are certain parents that prefer that their child get their education from a private school, or we or any political movement, what right do they have to say that that parent doesn't, that low-income parent doesn't have the right to send their kids to a private school?
I'd like to answer that, Alder Brunette. I'm a product of Catholic school. I had 12 years of Catholic education in Appleton. I graduated from Xavier High School. I was a very poor child. I came from a very poor family. My parents sacrificed tremendously to send all their 4 children through Catholic school, and they paid for it. I can remember when I was in Catholic grade school in Appleton, one year there were only 3 of us at that time. My baby sister hadn't been born yet, and my mother had to pay, brace yourself, $25 apiece for each of us for our annual tuition. So it cost her $75, and it was a huge, huge burden for her to come up with that $75. My children graduated from Notre Dame Academy. I was a high school teacher. That was my career. Because I was an Army wife, I taught wherever I was, and in my whole career, I taught in public school 2 years. All the rest of my career, I taught in private schools. I taught in Christian schools, private schools, every kind of school, but it was always a private school. I love private schools. I ended my teaching career at Notre Dame Academy, and I was an administrator my last 4 or 5 years. It has nothing to do with disparaging private schools. It has to do with transparency for taxpayers, and you have to ask the question, do people understand that when they pay their taxes and we show them that dollar and we say 44 cents of this dollar goes to public schools, do they understand that a great big chunk of it goes out the door to private schools? They ought to know that. That's all we're asking for is transparency. We're not asking for preferential treatment for public or private schools, just transparency for the taxpayers.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, everybody has a choice on where to send their children to school. But the state constitution, the Wisconsin state constitution, says that they have to provide a great opportunity for education in the state of Wisconsin. And right now, people don't have an understanding on their tax bill of where those funds are going. Nor do people understand that the public schools pays a lot of additional funds to the private schools. For example, if a child goes to a private school and has a number of special needs, the Green Bay Area Public Schools has to do the initial assessments and see if they qualify for an IEP. And if that private school can't provide the services, the public school provides the services for those children. The Green Bay Area Public School provides all busing to private schools at a cost to the Green Bay Public Schools. So we have to be transparent and accurate in our communications to the residents in our community so that they can make well-informed decisions and so they can make the choices that they need to make when a referendum is on the ballot because of the 0% increase in funding to public schools this last year in the budget, the state budget. We are headed, the Green Bay Area Public Schools is headed back out to referendum in November. And we want people to be able to make well-informed choices. This won't, be able to be in place for that November referendum. So we'll do the work to make sure people understand, what happens in the tax bill. But going forward, it'd be a great benefit to this community to understand their tax bill more accurately. And so that's what we're asking for.
I'm just trying to think that if the issue is Green Bay Area Public School and below that, and support to private vouchers, the dollar amount, it doesn't have to indicate the exact dollar amount going to voucher program. It could just be the cost to educate your child as levied by the Green Bay Public School District. So you could add and vouchers, but what the Green Bay Public School is looking to do is for taxpayers to know the amount of dollars to support the voucher system on a official government document where, as you said, that in part of your public information and education on a referendum question, you could share that with me. I'm just a little uneasy. Now, again, I'm not questioning your motives as individuals. I know Lynn, served with her. I just think that there's this undercurrent of villainization of private schools, and I personally feel very uneasy about being part of that if I see that that's occurring again.
Well, let me give you an example really quickly. To the school district mill rate in 2020 was $9.79 per thousand of fair market value in 2020. In 2021, it went down to $9.03 per fair market value, which was an 8% decrease. But that tax bill didn't show that because of the money to vouchers and all the other, everything else that's lumped into that one number. And so, excuse me, I don't have COVID. So I'm not infecting anyone today. Anyway, when we can show the really strong fiduciary strength of our great public school district. Remember, number one or number two employer in the city of Green Bay, and providing a service to 19,000 children and families. That's a lot of people that we're taking care of in this community, and we just the tax levy credit isn't noted there, or any of those other things.
Could you acknowledge, though, that some private schools, specific to a family or the needs of a student, can create better outcomes for that student?
I don't know, because I've never been in that situation.
I don't think that's what we're arguing about. here. No, this is where we're getting off track. And I guess the comment I'm going to make is, when I campaign, I go to a door and someone says, well, what the hell are you going to do about taxes? I paid $4,000 for taxes. Well, how much of that went to the city of Green Bay? Well, what do you mean? It all went to Green Bay. No, it didn't. Look at your tax bill. Brown County, NWTC, Green Bay Public Schools, they're all taking a piece of that. That's, to me, this is all this is doing. Yeah, granted, there's people out there that are always going to look to tear down the voucher program. There's going to be resistance to it. But the state law says that we must share this money with these schools, period. I mean, we're not saying who's getting how much or anything else like that. We're just saying Green Bay Public Schools, of which this amount is going to private and charter schools. And yeah, granted, you're right. Some people are probably going to get snotty about that. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just transparency. It's just how much and where is this money going?
Yeah.
And how much is going to Green Bay? How much is going to Brown County? Getting into whether it's a quality education or not, I went to a parochial school for 11 of 12 years, okay? 10 children in my family. I heard my dad cry every year because all of us went to parochial schools. I gave my children the choice, public or private. Some of them went public, some of them went private. I really wish a couple of them hadn't, but I mean, the bill was pretty steep, but I felt it was worth it because of the experiences that I had. But I also felt the public schools did a pretty darn good job too with the ones of my children that went to public schools. So I'm not looking to get into who's getting how much or anything else.
Yeah,
like
in
that.
fact, Bill, I'm just going to kind of reground this discussion a little bit.
Sure.
Because just as a reminder to the committee, one is the recommendation from staff is to refer to staff. So I think that there's,
Okay. Sorry,
some
I read it
additional
all
work
through.
that was being proposed here.
Well, really, it was a communication from an alder, and, at this point, we didn't put a lot of effort into it. We wanted to make sure that that was something that the committee wanted us to do some research on it.
Okay,
And
well-
we knew we had time.
Okay, and we'll hold on that for a minute, but also just as a reminder that right now the floor is open. We have some speakers, so.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Obviously, if you want to ask questions about this item, let's ask those questions, and then there will be time for discussion
Okay,
afterwards.
here's my question. All you're looking to put on there is what the levy limit is, or the levy limit is, right? That's on the tax bill. And out of that, how much goes to public schools themselves and how much goes to private and charter
And
schools?
independent charters.
And that's it. We're
That's
not,
it.
we're not indicating what schools
No,
or anything. It's
no.
just this levy, this amount, this levy, this amount, we're done.
Right. It's
Okay.
just transparency, that's all.
And accuracy, because then people know, they can make informed decisions.
Well, they're gonna have to do some more research, I
Right,
think. But
right.
at least that gives them pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, I would encourage you guys to go to the Green Bay Area School District website. There is, they took a tax bill and they actually broke it out with a really good explanation. Now, this is an old tax bill, this is from 2020, but they, looked at they explained the mill rate and everything else, and they went down into great depth and detail about, what this could say or should say, and what it does say to people. And so it's a very nice explanation. I don't work for the Green Bay Area School District, and so I just want to be really clear about that. I'm an involved parent and community member and committed to high-quality education for children in the state of Wisconsin. And I have a great statewide perspective because I work statewide in a lot of these issues. And so I can help Diana and get more examples and how people are doing it. But because there was initially legislation at the Assembly and the Senate level, it didn't get a hearing on the floor to do this statewide. So the Department of Revenue can't step forward to do this for everybody. So we're really kind of working to make sure that it gets done. And, Milwaukee's been doing it for a number of years. Racine's been doing it for a number of years. Greendale started it this year. South Milwaukee started it last year. And it's just kind of moving. Eau Claire, the city of Eau Claire and Eau Claire County are working on it, as is Madison and some other areas. So I want Green Bay to be first in northeast Wisconsin to pick it up and do it, so.
Okay. Are there any other questions for our guests?
No.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good to see you,
Anybody else
gentlemen.
that wishes to speak on this item? Okay. Entertain a motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor?
We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Hutchinson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So, as I alluded to before, it was on here as a staff recommendation to refer to staff. It's, if you guys are comfortable making a decision, of course, we can cast that vote tonight, but if there are other things you want to see, like, is this going to cost anything? What would this look like on our tax bill? How would it get represented? Because I see your point, Alder Burnett, too. That was my gut reaction, too. Had some concerns around that I don't want this to be a wedge issue. So maybe there's some further examples that staff could investigate and research,
Well,
but
that's what I'd be looking for, staff to research different examples, different ways of doing it, and the potential cost to our taxpayers to produce that form. I noticed that this year the tax form seemed a lot smaller than last year, I think. I mean, mine was only about that high.
the number go down.
I wish. But it just seems like the form gets, the one they mail us is the same size, but what you actually bring in is much smaller. But, I'm just looking for different examples, different ways of accomplishing the same goal of just very simple, basic information without, and I understand what Jesse's saying, I do. You see it in the newspapers and that kind of stuff, in the articles on social media. But I also think for a council that pushes real hard for transparency, I don't see a problem with being transparent about how that money gets sent out. Just like our tax bill, it's not all going to Green Bay. It's getting spread out amongst a bunch of other entities.
Okay, Alder Burnett?
Yeah, I get that transparency, but I'm, again, not casting aspersions on our speakers, but there is a movement in the state and a lot of politics behind villainizing and an attempt to reduce or eliminate the voucher system. And one thing that I had noticed, you had mentioned that you went to private school. Speaker Gerlach, she mentioned she went to a private school as a student. There are members of this community who don't have means, who need the voucher. I have worked with people, there's a group called Hispanics for School Choice, where there were a lot of Hispanic parents that were craving a school environment that would have been best for their children. And if that particular group of people were low income, then they would not have been able to afford to send their kids to the school of their choice. And when we had the COVID years, and we don't want to go back to that, but the reality is the Green Bay Public Schools, in my opinion, and the opinion of many parents, did not respond to the needs of the student the best way that they could have, whereas some private schools did, and kids were able to go to private schools in person for instruction. A lot of the public school kids that could not afford that option as a family, they struggled. And now you are seeing more and more parents opting to send their kids to private schools, and many of the low-income parents are needing the voucher in order to accomplish that. And for me, as long as every student gets a good education in our community, whether it's homeschool, private school, or public school, that's what I care about. It stinks that the state formula is all messed up and Green Bay's not getting the support that they need, but if so many students and parents are fleeing the Green Bay public school system, they need to figure out why that's happening. And I don't like this political current of blaming the voucher system to say, if only that didn't happen, we could strengthen our public school system. Yeah, maybe, but you also have to analyze why so many parents are leaving the Green Bay public school system. Just laying it out there.
Alder Hutchinson?
I understand what you're saying, Alder, but on the flip side of that, why didn't the state allow this to happen across the state? Why isn't it on our tax bill? To me, there's a flip side of what you just said. There's some type of need to keep things secret. Don't let the public know what's going on. Let's just keep funneling money, public money, into private institutions. So I don't see any issue with this if people understand where their money's going at all. I mean, what you stated may or may not be correct in other people's eyes, okay? But what is correct is where is the money going, okay? That's totally factual. Has nothing to do with ideas, it's factual. And I don't see any problem with giving facts out, none. So, I mean, it's what we're doing. So I would be in favor of what we're talking about, Alder Galvin's asking for options of what we can do. Will it cost the city money? What are different options we can put in on our tax bill to let people see?
Yeah, I'm not interested in, is Grace getting the money? How much is this one getting? I'm not interested in the voucher schools and the parochial schools that have failed. I'm not interested in getting into the nuances that if a child takes that money to a private school and leaves after one day, the money stays there and does not follow the child back to the public schools. I'm not interested in getting into any of those nuances. I'm just interested in the transparency of where's the money going, and just a lump sum. That's all. People can make of that what they want. They would anyway. They already do, because I'm sure that when they're out going door to door, they got people getting hot on them about how much money the public schools are spending, and they're right. We're not spending all that money. Some of that money is being spent to educate children at other schools, and I think that's only honesty. So I think we're getting too deep in the weeds over something that's a lot simpler than what it is. And I understand what you're saying, I do. But I also don't think we need to get down into that. It's a simple this is how much, period. You know? Because one school, there's some schools, parochial schools and that, they're not getting a dime because they choose not to or whatever. Others are getting much more, some are getting a lot less. I mean, you know, it all depends. I mean, my granddaughter goes to a private school, but she's going on a scholarship. So, I mean, you know, and I want people to have a choice. I want people to find the best glove that fits their child so they can get the best education and be as successful as possible.
It would have been nice, though, if in this resolution, the school district would have affirmed that they appreciate the role private schools play in educating community children. For some reason, that was excluded, and this is where it kind of feels like a bit of a political, tinges a little bit of politics as far as I'm concerned. If we're looking at transparency, because private schools do play a role in our community, but anyways, it is what it is.
Yeah. I'll admit, I see both sides of the issue. I do, of the discussion. And I think Alder Burnett admittedly is digging deep, but I don't think I think it's for good cause, right? Like, I think that there's a foundation there for at least that concern. Now, I think there's a discussion to be had about whether or not that concern is well-grounded in the scope of this discussion. Absolutely. But I think one of the things, for me at least, that I personally would rather just refer this to staff tonight. I would feel more comfortable having a little bit more time to think on this particular issue when there's not this looming deadline on it, because I would like to see what our options are and how it's done in other communities that currently do it. I'd like to know an example. I can't remember the term that was used, but the example of the type of tax bill. I'd like to learn more about how that translates to our tax bill. And then again, visibly how it's represented, because I think that gets at the heart of, you know, what Alder Burnett is expressing. And I'd like to know, you know, does it come with a cost, and what does that look like?
The motion I wrote down was refer to staff to determine options to be transparent at a lump sum level and the cost to accomplish it.
Yeah, and so, and while this doesn't have to be captured in the motion, it just know that it's implied, right? Like when our school board member, Gerlach, had mentioned, right, that there's that insert that had the dollar on it, and this is where your money goes, right? Like, so I even think about just how something like this could potentially be represented in a way that is transparent, which is, you know, what we're seeking here, but also respects the important role, you know, that our private schools play in that educational institution. Like, I think there's a way to accomplish both.
Yeah, because if the public school, you know, the public school systems in Green Bay are forcing very difficult decisions about closing schools.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want that, obviously, but if we get to the point where vouchers are eliminated, or this sort of movement sets a domino effect towards eliminating voucher system, then you have a whole bunch of private schools throughout your city that will have a hard time educating children.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna have those schools closing. We see it all the time with some of our Catholic schools. So just be careful what we wish for here, is all it's saying.
Yeah, and that's why I think I'd rather just take our time with something like this, and being able to thoughtfully think through some of those repercussions. Okay, so as a chair, I can make a motion, so I guess that
I'll
would
make
be
a
my
motion
motion.
to refer to staff.
You go with that?
Pretty
Okay.
much how Director Allenbecker listed it out.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Galvin to refer to staff, second by Hutchinson. Is there any further discussion on that item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. Let me see.
Dear.
Number 9. 9. Consideration of possible action to use contingency funds to pay the United States Department of Agriculture $9,650 for a cooperative agreement to conduct deer management in 2024. Dan, I assume this is you?
Yes, I can give a brief presentation and answer your questions. So back in July of 2023, we held a neighborhood meeting in the Preble Park area due to concerns about excessive deer populations within that specific neighborhood. There are approximately 30 residents that showed up, and of those 30 residents, all but one basically said the same thing. There are way too many deer in this neighborhood, and in fact, many of them stated that on any given night, they would see 10 to 20 deer bedded down in their backyard, which, you know, in my opinion, based on feedback I've heard with other residents throughout the years working in the Parks Department, that's a really high number and much higher than what we've typically heard complaints about. So back on December 12th, the Finance Committee approved allocating approximately $1,500 to hire the USDA, so the United States Department of Agriculture, to do a drone flyover survey of that neighborhood to actually count how many deer are in that specific area of the city, so that we can in fact either verify or disprove whether or not there is a large number of deer there. So the report, the flyover was done on December 19th, and the report was completed, and it was attached to your agenda packet. It wasn't attached till yesterday or today, so I apologize for it being late if you haven't seen the report yet, but it is in the agenda packet now. And on the first page of the packet, you'll see that there's a boundary map. There's two areas highlighted on that map. One is a yellow area. That's the approximate neighborhood complaint area, which consists of about a square mile of the city. And then there's a red boundary showing areas past that yellow area to actually do the drone flyover, so we could get a handle of not just that particular region, but how does it extend a little bit farther past the city. And so that red boundary consists of 2.5 square miles. And so when you look at the results of the deer count that the drone counted, they estimate between 125 to 132 white-tailed deer located within the 2.5 square mile red boundary. So as you can see on the map, most of the deer congregated in the natural areas, which consists of both private and public land. And the bulk of the concentration of the deer was in fact in the neighborhood where the concerns were initially raised by the residents. So on the last map on that report, it's called the Southwest Area Map, they counted approximately 67 deer and documented that within the square mile area of the city. So 67 deer within a half-mile area is a lot of deer. So we did reach out to the DNR's wildlife biologist to determine how many deer they would recommend as an appropriate level within the city. I spoke to that individual today on the phone. And I asked them to kind of assess it from a wildlife health perspective. There's a lot of other items that the residents have brought into consideration, such as their health concerns and the health and well-being of their families and their pets with that many deer located in one area. But I just asked the DNR to tell me from a wildlife perspective, what is a healthy deer population in a natural area? So they recommend anywhere from 20 to 40 deer per square mile. And in this situation, because it is somewhat urbanized, but there are a lot of natural areas and a lot of trees and vegetation in there, really 30 deer per square mile is a rough ballpark of what you should expect for a healthy deer herd population in the city, where they're not starving themselves to death or relying on neighbors to feed them in order for them to be healthy. So, and as I mentioned, the area of concern that they measured with the drone flyover was 2.5 square miles, which would give you an approximate number of 75 deer total within that boundary. They did also indicate that as they looked at that map, they agreed that there's a dramatic overpopulation in the half-mile area where the residents expressed their concerns. And just to do the map there, so for a half-mile area, you should have about 15 deer in there to have a healthy herd. They counted, what did I say, 67 deer in there.
Is that
So
the
there's-
Southwest map?
That's the Southwest map. And it's not even the entire Southwest map, it's just kind of focused on the residential area. And so it's about 4 to 5 times the amount of deer that should be in that area to have a healthy herd. We also did ask the USDA for their recommendation of what they typically would see for similar deer herd populations. And they recommended 20 deer per square mile. So they recommended about, 75% less than what the DNR would recommend. So the question is, where do we go from here? I think we've established that there is a high population of deer, especially in that half-mile radius. And so I'll let you know what we've already done to date. So as you know, we do have the Wildlife Sanctuary manages a citywide deer hunt, which is an archery program where residents can enroll in the program, and they manage deer through the archery. And then we find locations on city property to locate those hunters. Now, unfortunately, because a lot of the areas you see on this flyover, or in particular the highest population where the deer are congregated, there really isn't any city-owned property in that area for the city to continue with that management program. And to date, we don't take the numbers of deer on a year-to-year basis citywide that would have much of an impact to get that back into what is a healthy level of deer management. And so I don't quote me on this, but I'm thinking citywide, we probably take about 80 deer throughout the entire city on a yearly basis. And that's in all of the greenways throughout the city.
Well, it looks like your hunting program in Bears Creek around the railroad line and that is working.
Mm-hmm.
But when you compare it to the Southwest map, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe a property owner can bow hunt in his yard with permission of his adjoining neighbors.
A property owner can bow hunt in their yard per city ordinance. So it really, our ordinance is based on how close structures are located. So they have to hunt X number of feet away from a structure.
I can't see in the Southwest map where you're going to get too many opportunities.
Correct, but if you look, there's actually a lot of open green space in there that's privately owned, where there aren't houses on those parcels at all. So in that Southwest map, you'll see a lot of areas where those deer are congregating, where there's a lot of forested area, but it's not city-owned, it's all privately owned land. So those property owners could hunt on their own, or they could get permission to others to hunt and do it on the traditional deer hunting season.
Right.
The DNR could also allow the city to grant special permits to hunt outside of the city or outside of the traditional hunting time frame. But again, you have to find people who are interested in doing that, and there aren't a lot of people interested in that, especially close proximity to houses. The other concern is obviously with archery, a lot of times the deer don't die right away, and they run quite a bit. That's fine in a city-owned greenway where you have a lot of acreage, where if that happens, it really isn't that big of a deal because they'll find the deer still on city property. But when you're in a neighborhood, it can become problematic because the deer could run onto private property where possibly that homeowner is not in support of a deer management program. So there could be some neighbor-to-neighbor conflicts with allowing bow hunting outside of the traditional hunting restrictions, and the city managing a program like that, or not even managing, but granting the licenses to do that. So that's really not something that as a city we're interested in granting those licenses. If anything, the DNR could potentially do that. But again, it still would be archery, and it would still be within the terms of what is legal per our ordinance. The other option which we explored was the USDA does have a service that they provide where they will bring in sharpshooters and conduct specific hunts on specific days to help thin the herds using rifles. These are all trained sharpshooters who specialize in this type of work. It wouldn't just be an average citizen applying to do this, it would be an employee sponsored through the USDA. They do this in other communities throughout the state. I know that West Bend does this on an annual basis and contract services citywide to thin their deer population using USDA. Now, I haven't specifically spoken to West Bend, but I believe Assistant Attorney Kochert did talk to West Bend, so she might be able to answer some questions. I think she's on the line. They did the USDA did provide a quote of $9,650 to conduct anywhere from 4 to 6 hunts in the months of February and beginning of March. That's typically when they would do hunts like this because you have to, worry about the life cycle of deer and when the females are pregnant and when is the best opportunity to have a hunt like this. Also, we don't want to, if we were to consider this as an option, we wouldn't want it to conflict with our own managed hunt, where we allow our hunters to hunt 11 months out of the year per DNR guidelines, and they've given us approvals to do that. But the month of February, we don't hunt. So we could theoretically allow the USDA to hunt on city-owned property where we have our own hunters without it affecting our hunt. Now, obviously, they might eliminate some deer, which might affect how many our hunters would be able to manage throughout the 11 months. But that there wouldn't be a conflict of hunter versus hunter. For that $9,650, they would hunt not only public land, but also private land. So they would seek out some of these larger green space areas, find out who the private property owners are, and seek permission to hunt on their property. And they would do it, they would be very strategic. So they would hunt out of trees, and they would make sure that they're just shooting in a downward location in areas that are safe. They wouldn't be doing this like at Preble Park. We wouldn't just put them down at Preble Park, right next to the ball fields. We would make sure that we would select locations that make the most sense, that are safe to the public.
Do they use suppressors?
Yes, they would, yep. And then all of the deer would then be donated to the wildlife sanctuary to help feed our animals at the sanctuary. The DNR feels comfortable that if we were to pursue this, thinning the herd by up to 60 deer would give us a manageable number in that area of the city. Now, whether or not the USDA would be able to accomplish that many deer in their first year, it's questionable. But I guess they would, the quote is for 4 to 6 hunts, and they would just manage as many deer as they could within that time frame. And then if we were, then we would reevaluate after the season is done, see if it's successful, and we could always tweak it for the next year and find other ways to manage it if it's successful or not successful. But it would give us, some time to evaluate how it worked the first year. The price does also include a few $100s to include some wild turkey management efforts on the far west side of Green Bay, which has been problematic with residents there. So what they would do is, as part of the hunt, they would work with private property owners on the far west side, and they would set live traps for turkeys on private property. And because they would already be in Green Bay for the managed hunt, it's very economical to just add the turkey management to this. And then they would live trap these turkeys, and they would either relocate them to other state-owned land if the DNR would allow it. And if the DNR does not allow that, then they would donate the turkeys to a local food pantry. But I think it's pretty common and typical to relocate turkeys. The DNR does not allow relocating deer, though. That is not an option the DNR would allow.
Is there an optional add-on for Bigfoot?
We did not ask that question, and the drones did not look for that.
Only if they
so.
get pictures.
So the question is, whether or not we all agree that this is an effort that needs to be tackled on behalf of the residents of the city of Green Bay, and if so, how do we do it? Do we hire the USDA to come in with sharpshooters and try to manage it that way through a program that has been proven effective with other communities? Or do we rely on our own managed hunt through the archery program? But like I said, we're kind of maxed out with that on what we can do in this neighborhood because we only do it in urban greenways that are public owned.
I mean, unless you get permission from these private property owners in that almost bullseye center of that southwest map, unless you get permission from those private property owners to allow those hunters in there, you're doing a fine job around Bears Creek along the railroad line, it looks like. I say the best bet is do the USDA. They're safe, they know what they're doing, they're not gonna be making mistakes, they have suppressed weapons, there's not gonna be a lot of noise complaints or anything else like that. And with the permission of the property owners, because I believe this is almost all private property in here, if they can get the permission to do it, I think you clean up a pretty bad problem, because those deer, they're eating, and they're not just going to Bears Creek to eat, they're eating in all these people's yards and everything else, and I'm sure you've been getting the complaints, Bill, so.
And if Alderman Moran, I think you brought this forward. Did you have an opinion?
Yes, I was shocked, as I said before, to several people. As an alderman for the last 21 months, I asked other senior aldermen, what are you going to hear and all this, and everybody else said it's going to be speeding complaints, and it's going to be the reckless driving, all this, and the number one complaint I've been getting for the 21 months is about the damage the deer are doing. And at first I thought, well, it's just some shrubs, some gardens, but I kept riding around and looking, and yes, that's what it is. A lot of, you can't plant a bush and expect it to get where it's going to be useful, it's going to look terrible and all that. But then it turned into worse, because then I started talking to people and found out just in that area, I know I've had at least 5 or 6 people say they tested positive for Lyme disease. I've had 2 or 3, I think there was a third one called me, but I didn't get to get his whole message. One of his family members says it's anaphylaxis. It's another tick-borne disease. I'm hoping maybe Mallory Mavis wanted to talk, but I don't know if she's on tonight. She can tell you about her family history. She has to, when her children go into the yard to play in their backyard, she has to check them every night, pull ticks off of them, deer ticks. And she had a dog almost passed on her because of eating feces from deer. I've got neighbors complaining that it's worse than having to go pick up dog feces. It's deer feces all over they have to pick up in their yards. So when it gets to a point where it's affecting the health of our citizens, I think it's something we have to consider. And I was there when the gentleman from the U.S. Department of Agriculture did his presentation, and their big thing is they don't call them sharpshooters, they're marksmen. And these people are trained. They know exactly what kind of bullets to use so that it may not penetrate the deer, but it's going to take the deer down. They really have this down to a science. And it's West Allis, did you say that they're in?
West Bend.
West Bend. West Bend is, from what he said, is so happy with it that they're going to do it every year if it's needed. So I would hope we would go into that kind of a program. I've had a lot of negative comments, a lot of people love the deer and all that, but I think we have to take the health of our citizens is the most important thing.
Okay, I see Officer Mavis is on the line. Did you want to add anything?
Hi, good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate you guys having me. This has affected myself, my family, several of the neighbors within the vicinity of the neighborhood that I live near the Preble Park neighborhood district. It has also affected my duties with my job due to call volume. I'm the city's humane officer. I'm also a law enforcement officer. I do deal with wildlife calls for service. I myself have tested positive for late Lyme's disease. I was diagnosed much later than the time frame to typically be treated for that, so I am experiencing lifelong symptoms because of that. I have 2 children. My youngest son was treated for Lyme's disease this summer. I live off the dead end of Harvest Road, just off of Hillside. In that area, we have deer that just bed down. It's not uncommon to see anywhere from 7 to 15 deer come into my backyard, bed down, run through. They're habituated. They're not scared of people coming outside to scare them away. I've utilized various deterrents to keep them away. Solar censored flashing lights. I've utilized granules to keep wildlife away. I've utilized liquid fence, different home remedies, essential oils, cinnamon. None of that stuff has worked. Not only that, but they're damaging property. I've had to replace deer-resistant plants 3 years in a row in my landscape. These are typically plants that are not even consumed by deer, but now they're looking for a food source, and they're competing with such great numbers that they're now turning to things that they would not typically eat. My neighbors have also experienced this. Our babysitter who lives on Polaris, she was diagnosed with Lyme's disease. Another neighbor who lives on Wildwood was also diagnosed with Lyme's disease. And our neighbor who lives behind us on Edgewood was diagnosed with anaplasmosis. So those are all tick-borne illnesses. I've also implemented tick tubes, which rodents essentially go in and take away these permethrin and biofrin, different chemicals and stuff. We've had our yard treated. And it's difficult because I've exhausted many remedies on my own. And as a humane officer, that's my thing. Well, what can we do to manage this, on your own before, obviously you've exhausted all your options and things aren't improving. I want my family and my kids to go outside, but when I'm pulling 4 ticks off my kid just playing outside in summer, and like I said, we don't live in a wooded area, but we're surrounded by a wooded area, and I'm pulling ticks off of him, and it's a concern. And these ticks are so small; they're like the size of a pinhead. They're like the nymph larva that comes from this, and it has definitely been a problem. I have 2 dogs, both of which became ill after ingesting deer feces. Obviously, they have the small pellets, so to go clean up your yard, it is almost impractical to do so. And it's cost me a lot financially with my own health. Being treated for various things like MRIs and everything else like that to finally determine what I was diagnosed with. And then not to mention veterinary bills, deterrent options, those cost a lot of money. So it is definitely an issue, and it's gotten great in the last couple of years. I moved into the neighborhood in 2014, and you'd see a few deer, it wouldn't be an issue, but now it's gotten to the point where it is quite problematic. You walk to the dead end of Harvest at Edgewood, and you'll find anywhere from 22 deer bedded down just walking through there. I went with the USDA, and we just did a survey of the areas, and basically the Harvest Road, Edgewood, Deer Path, Wildwood, those are all problematic areas, and they're these hot pockets where these deer just tend to hang out, and unfortunately there's nothing to cull the herd, the issue is that the deer management program in that area is not working because it's exempt from it. So unless someone is hunting on their own property, which we have talked with area neighbors who are willing to do hunts on their own property, you can legally hunt on a property that you have permission, as long as you have permission from someone who's 50 yards from a neighboring building. So we did that, but the problem is these deer are not coming around during the hunting times that are typically seen. So that's where it gets to be an issue, is, in harvesting them.
Okay, any questions?
I was gonna say, also, the area she's talking about, you might be a little familiar with where firefighter Arnie Wolf passed. Mm-hmm. It's about a block from there. That it's an all open wooded area now. That's where a lot of them populate at night and that. It's under trust, so I don't know if we've ever been able to find out who owns the property to get permission or not, but that's an area that would be a very good place if we could get the USDA in there.
And,
Can I just say something really quick, if that's okay?
yes,
So, November 29th, when I did this survey, just a walkthrough survey with the USDA wildlife biologist, we went through that area. I have identified all of the property owners that reside in those areas or who occupy or own those properties, and they all have advised that there are deer issues, and they are willing to grant, consent for the removal of wildlife. I know one who lives on Deer Path. She installed 6-foot fences, and now the deer are jumping those. And she's never had an issue with it prior to the last year or two.
Yeah, that, people on Deer Path have contacted me too, they'd love to have someone come in there. The one thing I wanted to also point out is I witnessed a lot of that. I coach baseball at Preble. February and March, we'd go to the gym to do our training, and I go down Wildwood, which crosses Deer Path, and I can tell you almost daily, I can do a count of 12 to 15 deer. I've gotten out to take pictures, and I got to the point where I was afraid of the deer. They weren't afraid of me at all. So the other problem I've heard is people do like to feed these deer, even though it's illegal. Now we've had a few sightings in backyards of coyotes. So the people that are hurting us on this are also bringing other problems in, but the biggest problem that I get complaints on is the deer.
Okay.
And what we're looking at is just funding this first time, or this one-time option, and then just assess it from there. I would imagine that there'll be similar requests throughout the city moving forward, and we'll just assess the program and see how it plays out and how we address it citywide, and if that's necessary as part of the budget process moving forward.
Good. Any more questions? Is there, just one quick, Dan, is it purely based on the work that they do and the time they put in, or is it based on results?
It's based on number of hours that they put into it.
Okay, so there's no guarantee that we'll achieve a certain result?
Correct.
Okay.
The DNR has said that they would grant a permit for up to 60 deer.
Okay. Contingency is the recommendation. We'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to fund this through the contingency fund.
Okay, we have a motion by Galvin, a second by Burnett. Any further discussion? Unless Hutchinson really wants it.
No.
No? Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 10, consideration of possible action for approval of a resolution authorizing budget amendment for 2023 unbudgeted overtime for special events.
Motion approved.
Motion by Galvin.
Second.
Second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2023 F, informational. 2023 contingency account, $213,081.36. 2024 contingency account, $250,000, less the amount we just authorized. The next Finance Committee meeting will be held on January 30th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. Will entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion by Galvin to adjourn, second by Brunette. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned.